It may have finally happened. Star Wars and Lucasfilm under Disney have reached what we believe to be peak desperation. The Rey movie perhaps canceled. Their solution? Well, get Daisy Ridley onto the big screen no matter what it takes and try to rehabilitate the sequel trilogy. We're here to tell you folks, we've got two theories about this, and neither is good for Disney. So stay tuned and we'll tell you what's going down. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Pro Channel, where we, as ever, endeavor to, of course, explain entertainment and keep you ahead of the culture curve. A 4-course meal every single day because, of course, we deliver 4 videos a day to you, fresh, hot, and keeping Hollywood quite angry. Folks, we ask that you click the like button, and let's get started. Lauren Connor, Derek Anderson, and more here to help us weigh in on what is weighing down Lucasfilm, placing a severe frown on the face of Kathleen Kennedy. All right, folks, out of Game Rant, here's the stumble that Star Wars is doing yet again. We'll explain to you what the maneuver might be. It says, by Matthew Wilkinson, and published only 2 hours ago at the time of this, Daisy Ridley set for mentor role in upcoming Star Wars movie. Now, you might think for a moment that Matthew Wilkinson, the great author up there with the likes of Mark Twain, Edgar Allan Poe, that Matthew Wilkinson is talking about the Rey movie. Well, in some sense, perhaps. We'll skip the summary because we want to dive deep, folks. We want to dive deep. Daisy Ridley put her stamp on the Star Wars universe during the most recent trilogy with her performances as Rey Skywalker. Palpatine, I believe you mean. The focal character of those films. Due to Ridley's strong work, she grew throughout the movies and proved to be entertaining. Well, maybe. And that's something that has left fans wanting to see her enter the world of Star Wars once again. The entire baker's dozen of them that remain. It has already been confirmed that she will return to a galaxy far, far away in a future movie about her character attempting to rebuild the Jedi Order 15 years after the events of Star Wars: The Rise of Palpatine. Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy will direct that movie, which will specifically continue her story. However, that's not the only Star Wars film, apparently, in which Ridley will appear. Now, hang with us for a moment, folks, because we're going to get into what this probably might mean. According to the Snyder, Ridley is set to be a part of Sean Levy's upcoming Star Wars film, in which her character, Rey, will take on a mentorship role. It will be the first time that Rey has had anything to do in a movie other than, well, be all-powerful. This is an untitled film, which really makes us think it's definitely coming out from Star Wars. Those always go well at Lucasfilm. And the details about it are fairly scarce, but audiences do have high expectations about what the Deadpool and Wolverine director will be able to bring to the Star Wars franchise. All right, Derek, I want to start with you. Here's what I think they're planning to try here. I think that they're saying to themselves, this Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy thing is a real hot mess.
Oh, yeah.
And we might back it up by 5 years. But let's imagine a world, Kathy, where Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy cannot deliver the goods and we don't get a Rey movie. But we also walked poor Daisy out there on that stage that day. We put Daisy out there. Daisy went out there on stage and listen, if we don't give her a movie, it's going to look awful terrible for us. We're going to look like just the rapscallions, the nerf herders that we really are. And she's got to have a movie. So we need a backup plan. So they call Sean. They say, listen, Sean, listen.
Shawnee boy.
Shawnee boy, you got to help us. Get her in the movie any way you can so that at the end of the day, if this Rey movie doesn't happen, we can say that yours was the Rey movie all along. Derek, is that what they're doing? Is that the maneuver?
Yeah, initially that's what I was kind of thinking, because the Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy movie, listen, how many times have they changed out writers on that? How many different writers have taken, and I don't know if they have a current writer right now for that movie, but that thing has been a hot mess.
Yep.
Yeah, from last night, we saw Stephen Knight. He jumped off the ship, got a lifeboat, and paddled out of there because he knew that thing was a sinking ship. there was no reason to keep going with that. So I think you're right with that, Pro. I think if we're going to put Daisy Ridley, and let me do my disclaimer. Daisy Ridley is a lovely actress. She's a great person. I'm sure she's, the salt of the earth. However, the Rey character is a giant nothing burger that nobody cares about and nobody wants to see. That's the Rey character. So, in my opinion, they are doing one of two things, or maybe both. They are not only just saying, hey, let's just give Daisy Ridley a movie so we can say, hey, we brought Rey back in a movie. But there's also a possibility that maybe Sean Levy can do something to this character to maybe repair the image of Rey. Because you got to repair the image of Rey if you're going to give her her own movie. Right now, Rey is a character nobody cares about. I mean, nobody cares about this character. Nobody really wants to see this character again. So maybe there's a possibility that, okay, Sean Levy, can you do something to do a little maintenance, a little repair to make this character a little bit more palatable? That way we can justify putting her in another movie, because ever since they announced that this movie was coming out, it's just been bad news all the way around. So that's my, that's my opinion. I think that's what they may be trying to do with Rey to try to fix the character.
You've added a second layer to this. Darn it, now we're looking more like a parfait, maybe even an onion. There's layers. Because I was thinking that this was just there so that when they eventually have to cancel the Rey movie, they can say, well, she was still in a movie. We didn't let Daisy down. We would never do that. Now you're saying, and I like this theory, that Lucasfilm, the phone call may have went a little differently. It may have been something like this. Hey, Shawnee boy. Listen, Shawnson, listen to us. You got to fix us. Dude, we're screwed. We put this girl out there in the movies. We're going to make $200 million. You got to make her interesting. You got to fix what JJ and Ryan did. You got to fix this because she's boring as vanilla paste.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Lauren?
And there's a possibility you can do so. Listen, it would take yeoman's work of writing to make this character interesting. There are options. You could go dark. You can turn this character into a villain. I said that's a possibility, but that would take an amazing writer to be able to pull that off. But nevertheless, there are options that Disney has on the table if they could find the right writing group to put something together to make this character palatable. But if you're going to do a solo film with just Rey, you have to make this character better than what she is currently, because Rey is a terrible character. Daisy Ridley, lovely actress. Rey, Palpatine, horrible character. Horrible character. Nobody is going to go and watch this movie. And so, yeah, that's the only thing I can say. Otherwise, you're just going to throw her in this Sean Levy movie, like you said. Yep, there we go. We're done, and we're moving on.
All right, let me go to Lauren. Lauren, you've got two theories here, and they might both be true simultaneous. The idea that Lucasfilm went to Sean Levy and said, listen, we got to have a backup plan. And even though we might throw that little Grogu creep with Daisy, it's not enough. You got to make her interesting. We didn't think we were going to have to go this far. We didn't think we were actually going to have to make Rey be interesting, but darn it, the audience demands it now of us. Lauren, do they have any way to go with Rey and get the audience interested again? I don't know what you'll say to this. Is there any way they do this and pull it off?
No. And I'm going to make a prediction. And actually, I'm going to do a slight correction to Derek. I apologize. Derek said...
It's happened to me before, Derek. He's corrected me, and he was right every time. I get a cold sweat when the man gives me that look.
Derek said, right now, nobody is interested in this character. The correction is, right now, tomorrow, the next day, and every day going forward into perpetuity. No one is interested in this character, and never will be. I'm going to make a prediction here. The Sean Levy movie is not going to happen. The Rey movie is not going to happen. Nothing that they have on the current theatrical slate, except for The Mandalorian and Grogu, is going to happen.
Wait a minute. You're telling me James Mangold is not going to get another strike at the Lucasfilm attempt? He doesn't get to play with Kathy's Forge again?
My prediction is that they're going to put a moratorium on making any more announcements in the very near future. I suspect that right now they're doing some very panicked looks at each other and understanding that they cannot put out another bad product, period. They cannot. So they need to either mothball it or figure out a new strategy. And if I were going to be advising them, the thing that I would be telling them to look at right now is actually Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. and what Machine Games did with that game. That was a game that a lot of people were very nervous about, but it actually paid respect to the character and the franchise. It was an excellent story. It's a great game, and it's a third party that's doing it. You need to be doing that. That's what you used to do with the old EU, was that you license this out to publishers, to Dark Horse, to people who cared about the property and built the lore that became the foundation of what the greater Star Wars universe became. Get back to doing that. You guys can't do it on your own.
Okay, you've brought this up, and I've got to touch on this because I smell desperation in the air. And like a bloodhound, folks, I'm on to the desperation. This has been the headline I've seen from several different articles, and I just want to address it. Because, Lauren, you've played Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and you say it's a very good game, correct?
Yeah, it is flawed. I would call it a flawed masterpiece, but the way I would describe it is there have been several other Indiana Jones games, one of which is very beloved by the fan base. That's Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. I have not completed the game yet. I'm very close to the ending, but I think it may knock it off the top spot. In fact, I may even elevate this up to movie canon. I think this is what they should have been doing for a very long time. They put something together that's really special.
Okay, so here's the problem. I agree with you that it's special. I have no doubt that it's a fantastic game. I want to go over here to Reddit real quick. And we know that Reddit isn't always right. In fact, perhaps we should take the more skepticism by the fact that it's on Reddit. But I don't here. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle has reached an all-time concurrent player count of over 8,000. Now, I don't need to really tell people, if you play games at all and you follow this stuff at all, that's not good. It's a major underperformance. And that, I believe, is because of what Lucasfilm has done to the Indiana Jones franchise, which, by the way, they've done Star Wars as well. I just want to show people how the game is played, okay? Let's understand that this is both, as you said, a flawed masterpiece, and it looks to me to be a complete commercial failure. Okay. By Con Sarin, out of Games Radar, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle was successful enough that Disney reportedly, quote, picked up the phone and once more, unquote. Weeks after Lucasfilm Games' boss expressed interest in the idea. Lauren, Disney is not the one putting this game out there, are they?
No, it is Machine Games that is the developer, and it is Bethesda that's the publisher.
So Disney can be happy, sad, angry. It doesn't matter because Disney's not the one that faces the financial scrutiny of this. It's Bethesda. And you'll notice that Bethesda, also owned by Microsoft, they're not out there saying this was a success. They're not out there saying we want more. Disney, give us the go ahead. Give us the green light, Disney. This is Disney saying it was successful enough that Disney picked up the phone and said, hey, if you want to make some more indie games, go for it. That to me is just, this is on par with how badly things are going with the Daisy Ridley Ray movie. That's a very sad kind of spin that they're making. And do you agree with that, or you think that maybe they do see this as successful?
Well, I think it depends on how you're looking at it. And I suppose that if we're going to dig into this a little deeper, there's a couple of things that I would note. And one is that there were a lot of people, myself included, who were skeptical about this game before it came out. And there were reasons for that, not the least of which being the track record that Disney has had with narratives that they're putting into things. Some of the things that we saw and some of the behind-the-scenes developer things, there was a real fear, I think, that the companion character in this game, Gina, was going to be a girl boss who was going to show up Indiana Jones. And that's not the case. She's actually quite a compelling character who won me over. She's a great companion for Indy in the game. But besides that, this has been a year of AAA failures left and right, and you're seeing a large portion of the AAA space collapse. And so I think a lot of people were keeping their wallets closed because they anticipated that was going to happen. Also, the game is on Game Pass, and so I think a lot of people are probably playing the game that way instead of doing a traditional purchase. It's also important to keep in mind it's a single-player game, not a live service game, so I put less stock in concurrent players than I would in something like a Helldivers 2 or something like that. That being said, My suspicion is that commercially, the game probably is a failure. However, I suspect over time, with both the critics and the audiences lauding the game, that it may become something of a sleeper hit, especially when it goes on sale. When you also consider the fact that, as near as I can tell, there are a couple of elements in the game that some people may find objectionable, but I think they're relatively minor. And if you look at this the way that I do, which is that this is what we've wanted out of Indiana Jones, except for besides the slop that you've been giving us, this is the kind of thing that could revive the franchise. If it gets this kind of acclaim for this first release, you may be willing to take a shot on the second one. I'm curious to see if Disney would be interested in footing more of the bill for a second game in order to cover Bethesda and Machine Games if they're nervous about producing another one of these. Because let me tell you, the acclaim for this game has been almost universal. This is what we want to see for both Indiana Jones and Star Wars. Pay attention to these kinds of products because this is what we want.
But this also indicates.
I agree. I'm sorry, Pro. Just
No,
want to
go ahead,
piggyback
Derek.
off what Lauren said, because everything Lauren said, I was about to say. I think the
Mhm.
success, the quote unquote success that they're talking about, is that people actually like it. For once, people like something from Lucasfilm or from a Lucasfilm product. People like this game, and I think that's the success that they're talking about. Holy, everything that I've heard about this game. Again, I have a PlayStation, so I haven't had an opportunity to play it. And I think I saw Striker X 31 and mention it's not even out on PlayStation yet. And so when it does drop on PlayStation, let's see what the results are there. But I think that's really what Disney is looking like. Holy smokes. You mean to tell me that somebody actually likes an Indiana Jones product? Okay, there's still some interest. Let's see if these guys will go back to the drawing board and give us more of that, because apparently we can't do, right by our own property. So maybe a different company can figure out the right magic sauce, the secret sauce to get Indiana Jones going, or to get some of these other properties going. I think that's what Disney is looking at. So I agree with everything Lauren said. The ratings have been great. I think it got like a 9 out of 10 on IGN, and it had like a 80 something on Metacritic. It's a great game. A lot of people have been praising it across the board. So I think that's what Disney is looking at, or Lucasfilm, I should say. They want something, positive, some positive momentum for this franchise, because they dropped the ball big time with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And maybe just like what I was saying with Ray, they need to somehow figure out how to repair a lot of the damage that's been done to these franchises. And if they have to go offshore and go to a different company or go outside of Disney to get that thing done, okay, let's do it.
So what you guys are referring to is rehabilitation. We're talking about Indiana Jones. They have to recognize they've done such damage to the franchise that when they put out excellent games, Disney may even have to foot the bill more, because you've got to rehabilitate these things in the eyes of the public. The public is exceedingly skeptical. Now, to bring that back to Ray, which is where we began this journey, I think you're onto something, Derek, and I want to bring on a new panelist and ask him about that. But Derek, when you say that Levy may be brought in to rehabilitate, that I think is where Star Wars is. Folks, please welcome to the stage Nolan Thunder. Nolan, we're happy to have you. And Nolan, the question to you, Nolan, is when we look at the cost of rehabilitation of a film franchise, we are talking about, we just saw with Andor, the price tag in excess of $600 million ludicrous dollars that was brought to us by Forbes. Nolan, how do they do this? How do they rehabilitate Ray when it's going to cost them hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to do so? And it could result in flops. It could result in very public, very embarrassing flops to try to rehabilitate the character.
The only way they know how, Pro. Bring in the guy that directed Big Fat Liar. That's the best. Apparently that's their ace in the hole. I am honestly baffled that they're bringing in someone so attached to comedies and such. But I think it just goes back to the philosophy of Lucasfilm as a whole. We saw here, I believe it was only like a few weeks ago, where they were saying that Rey was basically all they got at this point. They think that the whole weight of this franchise rests on her shoulders. And I think they just feel like if they can really nail the character, they can revamp Star Wars. Because I know we've talked before where we feel like often Lucasfilm can feel like they're in an echo chamber. But if there's one thing we've learned, after the reception of the Acolyte and it not getting renewed, is they've had a bit of a wake-up call right now. And I really think it comes down to, I believe they think that this gamble is worth it, because I don't think they feel like they're gambling Rey. I think they feel like they're gambling Star Wars as a whole. So honestly, I could actually see it to where they might be able to pull through with a semi-decent film, because anyone with their backs against the wall are going to come out on all stops. Now, is the film going to be great? Doubt it. But I feel like they're going to leave no stone unturned, if that makes sense.
Well, I'll tell you this. I think Star Wars has landed so lowly that they're probably watching to see what happens with Mando and Grogu. If that movie severely underperforms, it would not surprise me if there's a complete stoppage of Star Wars for 3-4 years. Because I don't know where you could go after that. If Favreau cannot get you the win, and if those characters cannot get you the win, then Disney is on the mat. And Disney's going to have to accept that the only way forward is to rehabilitate Luke Skywalker. And that would be very painful for them, because the only way you can fix Luke is to get rid of, it, folks, the sequel spin-off trilogy.
Right. And that's my counterpoint to Nolan, is that it does not matter what you do with Rey at this point. She will not be accepted, period. They've had their chance to try and push their agenda. It didn't work. It is time for them to admit that. They're not going to want to do that. But the only way Star Wars gets fixed, the only way, is you have to jettison the sequel trilogy. Nothing less will be accepted. Now, on another point, you were saying earlier that you were sorry that I have to continue to review Skeleton Crew. I actually liked last week's episode. So far, for me, there's only been one bad episode of Skeleton Crew, and that's kind of remarkable coming from them.
Wait a minute. Hold up, Lord. Hold up. I didn't like episode 4. Which one did you not like?
Episode 4 is the one I didn't like. This was episode 5, last week's episode.
Oh, I'm with you. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. And so, but I mean, Skeleton Crew is not going to fix Star Wars. It's not going to bring in any new fans. It's not going to rehabilitate the franchise. The only thing that can do that is you have to jettison the sequel trilogy. And at this point, honestly, what you have to do is go back to immediately after Return of the Jedi. Not jump forward into the future, not do a different timeline, not do a different area. You've got to pick up with the original crew and the aftermath of the Empire's fall. That means you're going to have to recast people, but you're going to have to do that. Otherwise, this thing doesn't fly.
Right. I agree, Lauren. I completely agree. You got to flip it around. What they did to, the EU, making it Legends. Now you need to reinsert Legends back into canon, and then you need to make the sequel trilogy and all of that stuff. You need to make that Legends. Okay, so you need to flip it around. That becomes Legends. Okay, fine. You got your Legends material. Great. And now you bring the EU back into the canon, and then you recast. I don't think people would have a problem with the recast, seeing how Mark Hamill, every single time he opens his mouth, seems to destroy Luke Skywalker even that much more. So go ahead and recast Luke Skywalker. Go ahead and put Sebastian Stan. That's what a lot of people want anyway.
He's as nutty as Mark, though, at this point.
Well, but at least he's less toxic. He's less of a problem than Mark Hamill. But I think that's what you do. You got to reinstitute the old EU, and then you make Heir to the Empire, and that's it.
Honestly, I think the guy who played Luke in I think it was the Book of Boba Fett episode.
Book of Boba Fett. Yeah.
He actually looks remarkably similar to Mark Hamill. I don't think they even need to do the digital stuff with him. Plus, he's going to come at a much smaller price tag. Lucasfilm, Disney, one of the things you need to do is get your budgets under control. So if you're going to be taking some risks, let's do the recasting. Let's do it with actors that will accept a lesser budget that will increase contingent on the fact that the series are successful. That's how the original Star Wars was done, and it worked. Yep. Also, make your stories smaller. One of the mistakes that you have made is trying to make the stakes higher and higher. Now it's not just a planet that's threatened, it's an entire solar system. At a certain point, when you get the stakes that high, they don't even make sense anymore. You can't comprehend them, so you don't feel any tension. Let's get back to character threats and character building, less special effects, more grounded stories. do those kinds of things and you can get yourself on a footing where maybe you can recover. But none of this is going to happen until you get rid of the crap that you've already produced.
And
That's
to
right.
what you're saying, Lauren, I think you really have the formula for success there. And I think that could genuinely win back the people that they've basically been stabbed in the back the past, decade, basically, at this point. But my counter to that will be, do you think bringing in people like Sean Levy means that we might actually get some outsiders coming in who could actually make this stuff happen? Or do you think this just lives and dies by Kathleen Kennedy to where she's never going to let Ray go?
I was just about to say that. If you don't get
Yeah.
rid of Kathleen Kennedy, nothing changes, even in the perception of fans. But go ahead, Lon.
Well, that's absolutely correct. The leadership and the people who are running the story group and all of that stuff, they have to go. That's why the first step in this is actually outsourcing and licensing to exterior parties who actually have a finger on the pulse of what the fandom wants. One of the greatest things that the old EU did was actually license Star Wars to Dark Horse Comics, who are masters at adapting cinematic properties into comic book form. And they produce stories in all kinds of eras with all kinds of characters that built a foundation that hadn't previously existed and became integral to what the EU became. And it was because these guys genuinely loved Star Wars.
Yep.
You need somebody who has that kind of a feeling for what it is and what the fans want to begin that path to recovery. Now, one of the problems that you have when you're talking about bringing in somebody like Sean Levy is that at this point, Lucasfilm will bring in anybody who will do what Kathleen wants. They don't want somebody that has an independent vision. And what Star Wars desperately needs is a visionary, but a singular visionary, somebody that sees what Star Wars is and where they want it to go, who is not going to be telling stories by corporate decree. That's part of what's killing this franchise, is that they're not coming from a storytelling standpoint. They're coming from, what do we think is marketable, what have we been told is trendy, and what is the message that we agree with that we want to force on the audience whether they want it or not. That's a recipe for disaster.
And yet, Skeleton Crew, as we believe might go, it could go down as doubling down on the sequel trilogy. It would be a doubling down on stupid. And we'll see what happens with the Rey movie and with Daisy Ridley. Whatever happens with stupid Star Wars and lame Lucasfilm, we're wishing well for Daisy Ridley, because she has no part in the story. She has no part in how her character is portrayed, other than reading the lines and acting them out as well as she can. We wish her well, but Star Wars is unwell, and it's because of the people who are stewards of it. The Hollyweirds don't understand how it is we do what we do, bringing you video after video every single day of the utmost highest excellence and quality. But folks, we do it because of you. We appreciate you. You are seen and heard here on the Pro Channel. Make your voices heard, folks, by doing one last thing before we say goodbye for a short time. Consider clicking the like button. Share, subscribe, and you know what? That notification bell, click it and stick it to the algorithms. Also, drop a comment down below and let us know your thoughts. And don't forget, folks, we've got even more content on the way. If you'd like to become a member, it's just the price of a soda per month, and you'll gain access to all kinds of exclusive content beyond what the public sees, including archival footage of the Pro Show that goes away after just a few days from its public release. Folks, we hope we get the honor of spending time with you again soon, and until then, keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep having fun.